Hi, it's Polly here. Yay! In Danceware just because. So, interesting role-playing game. It's been around for a while, but it does deserve a closer look. The Burning Wheel. Strange name, and God help us, they keep the wheel metaphor through the whole thing, but you know, whatever rocks your boat. But look, so The Burning Wheel. It comes, you can get like a single hardback. I've got sort of the soft collection, but it's actually a really nice piece of game design. So at its absolute core, it's got a very simple dice roll system. Skills and so on have what they call shade. Shade is the number required on a d6 for that dice to score a success. So that can be typically it's like a 4, 5 or 6. It could be a 5 or 6 if it's like a more difficult thing. Could be a 3, 4, 5 or 6. You get the idea. Now, in the game, skills and characteristics and abilities are expressed both by a number of dice, which is kind of the level of skill that you've got, but also the shade. So a typical thing, like I'm trying to fire a bow, I'm trying to, you know, persuade someone, whatever, it'll probably be a 4, 5 or 6. And I'll roll a number of dice, and you're looking for numbers of successes. Fantastic. So, simple system, intriguingly nuanced, but what they have done in this game is create some very interesting structures that handle things that a lot of role-playing games do not. So, first off, let me absolutely laud their character generation system. This game has a beautiful character generation system where what you do is you choose life paths. Now, they have like a monster book, the Monster Burner, and they also have like a character burner. But the interesting thing is that monsters can be kind of created as characters too. They've got their own different choices of life paths. So what you do is you select, you know, your background, culture and species and so on, and there are a number of different kind of environments you could come from. So if you're like human and it's medieval, you could come from a seafaring environment, a town environment, a noble environment, a countryside environment, and you pick kind of a starting point. This gives you a series of skills and traits, beliefs and so on. We'll get to those in a second, but you pick from those and you create some basics, and then there is a tail in this that tells you what that can go on to. So you'll build a character of 3 or 4 of these life path sections. So for instance, I thought it was sort of interesting, say you wanted to be a knight. What you could do is say, all right, I am nobly born, so I will start off, I will be training as a page. So, you know, I get a bit of etiquette and I get some, you know, some heraldry, and I can ride a horse and deliver a message. But once I've been a page, the tail in that means I can go and I can become a squire. And squire, pick up some sword and shield and some riding, because, you know, they're training me to do things, and skill in, you know, wearing armor and maintaining it and these sorts of things. And a squire can then lead on to being a knight. So, you know, that's your typical noble path. However, there were things like you could be born in the country and you can say, all right, I'm going to be working as a stable hand and so on. Okay. Aha, from a stable hand, I can head into the military and become a cavalryman. A cavalryman can become a squire, and therefore a squire can become a knight. So you've got a path, say, to becoming a knight that doesn't have the sort of etiquette and so on that you would pick up from being like the page end of things and so on. You're more rough and ready and you come up through the ranks. And this thing goes for everything, you know, scholars and seamen and sages and merchants and, you know, mercenaries and longbowmen and, you know, witches and whatever you want to be. So when you're creating a character, obviously you pick the usual sort of characteristics and so forth, but what you do is you pick some beliefs. You pick 3 beliefs, and those are things that are essentially used in role-playing, but there are some rewards for playing them. Those aren't really airy-fairy beliefs. They are done kind of to provide the triggers that pushes your character into action, or that fires your character. So it might be, you know, I will protect my lord's family no matter what, or I'll, you know, never trust a dwarf, or I will take revenge on the people who destroyed my family, or these kind of things. The next thing that you can also do is put a series of instincts. Now, these are kind of a get-out-of-jail-free card for your character. They are usually done as an if-then statement. You pick 3 of these, and they are behaviours that your character has that you don't need to really tell the umpire you're doing. If you've got it down as an instinct, it presumes that you're doing it. So it might be something like, when threatened, always draw my sword. Always sleep with a dagger under my pillow. Or, you know, whenever I come into a room, or always check the corners and the ceiling for danger. It could be something very Cugelesque. You know, from Jack Vance. When danger enters by the door, I leave by the window. It can be those sorts of things, but they just automatically come into roleplay without you saying, I know you've got your sword drawn or whatever, but these can actually lead to trouble, but more later. And the last thing is traits, and you pick up these traits not only from, you choose them, but you can choose special ones from each of these background segments in your life path. There are traits that you pick up, and again, these are character quirks and so on that inform the role-playing of your character. They can be physical that you pick, so like I'm beautiful, you know, I stutter, you know, I'm the hairiest individual you ever met. But they can also be things that add to particular dice rolls in particular ways. These you tend to pick these up from the life paths. So it's like my trait is I'm very canny with horses because, you know, I've been a stable boy. So it's like, okay, so you'll get a dice bonus when trying to see whether a horse is lame or how valuable it is, or, you know, recognizing a horse that you've seen before. So, you know, sometimes there are little extra dice kajigger. So you'll build these. Now, these can all change during play. What's kind of nice about this is that at the end of a session, if people haven't really played their beliefs or kind of lamed out on them, the table as a whole can kind of take a vote that that belief has to change. It's clearly not generating anything that your character really does. And this also goes for things like, you know, instincts and beliefs and so on. So and you can also elect to change and mutate these things as well. So, if you've you're sworn to, I will protect the life of my prince. Sadly, he stopped a ballista bolt somewhere in Act 3 of the current adventure. Shite. Right. New belief. I will get the guy that got my prince, or I will absolutely obfuscate the fact that I was supposed to be looking after him when that happened, and it's not my fault. It really isn't. You know, these things can happen. Now, you've got 2 kind of lines of experience with this. Obviously, your characteristics and your skills can go up. Now, here's where this thing starts to get rather clever. You need a set number of tests for a skill or a characteristic to go up, but you have a set number of ordinary difficulty tests and a set number of very difficult ones. And once you've got those ticked off, you go up, you know, a dice in experience. But under, you know, many games, it's like as you get higher, it might be easier to pass or low. They've got a little chart which shows, given the number of dice that you've got, what an easy task is going to be and what a difficult one is going to be. So a guy that's got like 3 or 4 dice, he might need to score 1 success if it's an average task, and he might need to score like 2 or 3 if it's a difficult. But this will increase the more dice he's got, so it's always difficult for you to go up. Now, when you roll tests and so on, we're all used to characters and players badgering us for that little bit of advantage. Oh, you know, I'm going to get the high ground. Oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. You can give it to them. In fact, they pretty much say you can kind of be badgered for 1 extra dice. Let the characters, if they've got a good, you know, tactical idea. You know, oh, you know, I know the ground. I've been in this town before. You know, fantastic. Give them an extra dice. But this essentially makes it doesn't make it easier for them to pass for experience, because if they had 5 dice, well, since they've gotten these extra ones, 6 dice. You're still looking for that harder pass. It hasn't made it easier to get experience. In fact, it might have made it slightly more difficult. So, and people leaping in to help you, like you can get characters to aid you in various tasks. No, you might want to do it by yourself. It might be easier to get experience if you just do it yourself. Now, those tests, by the way, you do get the experience whether you pass them or not, which I quite like. You learn from failure, except for a couple of things. You don't learn from failure from perception, and you don't learn from failure for things like knowledge. Not knowing something doesn't make you better at knowing it, and not seeing that runaway cart that's about to run you over doesn't make you better at seeing runaway carts. So yes, I quite like that. Now, they have a second trail of sort of experience. This is called Arthur, the King of Camelot. But this is essentially, you get Arthur for playing those beliefs and those traits and those instincts. You also get it for mighty acts of heroism, for making the whole table collapse with laughter. There are different kinds of Arthur you can get. They're all recorded, and if you play those beliefs very well, or if those beliefs cause like a role-playing conflict that is played out very well, or if a major crisis causes you to completely rethink those beliefs and so on, Arthur will result. If you have those instincts, and sometimes those are like a get out of jail free card, or you know, an instant save, like yes, I've always got that dagger under my pillow. If you deliberately play that the instinct doesn't kick in for whatever reason, then you'll get Arthur from it. So it's like, oh, well, there's assassins out there, but for some reason I haven't got the hidden dagger that I normally carry in my bodice. You've just decided to leave it at home. It causes a complication for you in this role-playing scenario now, so it's worth some Arthur to you. And you can also get some for being most valued character and those sorts of things. Everyone votes on it. Now, they sort of have different levels of play. Are you playing this hard and gritty? Are you playing this kind of over-the-top heroic? It's got different suggestions for Arthur rewards for each of these types of play. So if you're playing hard and gritty, you don't give out much of it. If you're sort of wanting everything to be kind of way over the top, yeah, sure, okay, give out way more of this. What the Arthur does is you can spend this to effectively give you bonuses right there on the table. So you can re-roll dice, or you can make skill rolls into like an open roll where you take the 6s and you keep rolling those as extra dice. You can force people to do re-rolls. Very useful if someone's like hit you that's going to cause you, lethal damage. Oh, re-roll it. So yeah, they're a get out of jail free card for that. You can also save them for character improvements and so on. And one very interesting thing is if you save masses of the damn stuff of a few different kinds, like the stuff that comes from beliefs and the stuff that comes from heroic activities and so on. But if you cash in large amounts of these in one go, you can change the shade on a skill. You gain a moment of amazing enlightenment. You can either have it temporary for a few of these points. So for this scene, suddenly, instead of 4, 5s and 6s being successes for, say, your sword skill, but now everything kicks in, and for this one glorious moment, it's 3, 4s, 5s, or 6s. But it can also be a permanent thing that kicks in, which costs you an atomic butt ton of Arthur. So, very, very interesting piece of work there. Now, another thing that I really like is they have this whole duel of wits things. They've got it like a social dueling system. And this is set out So that, say, for instance, if you had like characters that are in a court case and you're trying to defend them, or if you're kind of manoeuvring for favour at court, or trying to put a proposal before the Royal Council, or trying to kind of convince a group of rough and ready, horrible, piratey sorts that you truly are their long-lost ally, or whatever. This Battle of Wits system is done. You can do it as just a straight roll, but they've got this more complicated system where they've got different ploys that you take. You take like a turn, you've got 3 different ploys that you can take. Oh, I'm going to do obfuscate, I'm going to change the subject, and then I'm going to hyper-emphasize my point. And the other guy kind of picks his in secret, and you see how they match each other. He's very aggressive, so I figure he's going to come out, immediately trying to make an aggressive point. Oh, I'm going to just be completely avoiding the subject. What? Hi, gentlemen, I think what's really important here is that, this is Chewbacca. What? But he comes from the planet Endor. What? If you believe that, then you must acquit my client. So you have the body of the case, and the body of the case is kind of, each person's case is kind of based on their willpower as well as their skill and so on, and you try and essentially whittle down the other guy's ability to stay in the long-term argument. A similar system is used for combat. You can do a simple version, straight roll. I've got sword skill, you've got sword skill, we do a contested roll and see who comes out on top. And that's probably, the nicest way of doing things. But they do have a very complicated system like this for melee combat as well. You've got different moves that you can choose from. Your number of your agility and so on gives you a number of different moves that you can make during the turn. So you pick these and you see how they match up against the one the other character has chosen in secret. So if this guy's dodging and ducking and you're doing an all-out attack, it won't come out as well. So alright, so there's a more complex version that gives you tactical choices and so on. If you must drink. They've also got like a hyper complicated way of doing hit location if you want it. So when a hit's landed, someone sort of says with their stance what their stance is that kind of is vulnerable. So I'm using a two-handed sort of sword, so it leaves my chest kind of exposed. But because you're wearing like a breastplate, you're pretty happy about that because, that's plenty of armor. What the guy who hits can do is, as he gets extra successes, he can walk that hit location across to another location. So you can move it up or down, so you can take it from like chest and abdomen, or chest up to throat or something like that, which is less armored and does more damage. So again, simple system, complex system. It's up to your choice of how you want to play. Now this thing's got some really nice little extra settings that were done for it, and that kind of Clash of Wits conversational system and so on lends itself to some very interesting gameplay, some very dramatic stuff, but you can play a broader game. This isn't just a thing where you run in and swing swords. You've got a thing called circles, which is sort of your ability to tap into a social circle and information and so on. Who do I know? Can I find stuff about this? Can I influence this? And this is done, essentially, it's a skill roll. You can kind of burn it out. If you overtax it, you can whittle it back, and it'll take a while to build favours up to build it up again. There's a similar thing for resources. Resources are not just what money you've got, but it's what kind of favours you can bring in, what kind of loans people might give you, what sort of things people might be willing to just do for you. And again, you can use this to try and gain equipment, gain use of things and whatever. But if you overextend it, if you push that too far, that whittles away as people get sick and tired of you kind of leaning on them for a loan, or, hey mum, can I have the car? So you have to be careful about those resources. But this is like a broader social world. So there's some nice settings. So Jihad is, well, let's face it, it's Dune with the serial numbers filed off. But, fairly thin book, this one. But this has all of the stuff you need to create characters for that kind of setting, be it desert guys with blue in blue eyes who are waiting for their wonderful Mahdi, or noble guys from mighty noble houses who are all having got to watch for assassinations and always manoeuvring against each other, or people with some psychic powers, Bene Gesserit, and the psychic powers that go with many of these other groups. So so nicely set up for a political thriller game, which again you don't often see. My personal favourite is The Blossoms Are Falling. This is a Heian period Japanese setting for this, and this is gorgeous because this gives you all the settings that you need for Japanese stuff. This is currently my favourite Japanese setting game, but apart from all the background that you obviously need, so Heian is the period where you've got the imperial court and the emperor and so on, and you've got courtiers. A couple of these clans kind of dominate that court. A lot of emperors found they didn't have a lot of power because they're tied up with a lot of ritual, but what they found is they can retire pretty much as soon as they've had an heir. They can retire. So when you're about 18, 19, or in your mid-20s or whatever, you get out and you become a retired emperor. But your last move before you give up as an emperor is you sign a whole lot of stuff over to the office of the retired emperor. So what happens is the office of the retired emperor often had the ability to award people with tax concessions. I'll make your fiefs all tax-free. I will let you have trade in this area, and you get a reduced tax for it. They could also do some land grants and so on. So they've got some actual fiscal power. So they've got, in many ways, more power than the throne. So retire and be free. And this is also the time when the samurai, as a sort of a force in society, have gone from mere servants that these guys dispatch out to deal with bandits. They've started to get together, start to get some political power, and so samurai's here. But there's also some great magical stuff because you've got monsters and demon chasing and so on. And if you ever get a chance to see the movies, the Onmyoji movies, that's this setting, and those are beautiful kind of demon hunting stories. But you've got all of the paths that you need to make life paths for characters in this. And one of the things I loved is you can start as the Emperor of Japan. It's like, all right, I'm going to be a court character, so I'm going to be a baby born into a high noble family. So, all right, so I'm going to take that. All right, so that's my basic. My first job I'm going into is child emperor. Yes, I was crowned at the age of 6 and was emperor. Okay, so get some skills and traits or whatever. All right, and then from that, I'm going, my next life path is going to be, I'm going to retire. I'm going to be retired emperor. I'll get some extra bits from that. Good, I'm starting the game as a retired emperor. Or you could start as the reigning emperor, and you can play it, because that's actually a thing. There's people vying for positions. There's people vying for your job and trying to force you out. There's, growing samurai clans, people petitioning for the crown, because they say this is not just, and this is... So as a character, you can actually play this. This is a real game that you can play as the Emperor of Japan. I love it, So, but you could also play the meanest little peasant on the streets. You'll still get a game out of it. I love that. So, really interesting role-playing game. There's magic systems in these. You tap into the same systems as everything else. So obviously this has a very Japanese system. There's some nice racial stuff in the basic game, so that they bring in traits and so on that make sort of different races come alive. So your traditional kind of fantasy dwarves, they tend to have that kind of gold hunger and so on as a trait which can kick in. Elves and so on, they can have some songs and so on, which are essentially like magical things that happen, but they have to keep the ennui out because they're mortal, and alas, they start singing too much Tra-la-la-lally, and oh, he's trying to sail into the west again, stop him. Come back here. No, not until we've gone down that dungeon, you don't. So so there's some really nice kind of cultural ideas in this. Look, this is a terrific piece of work. I would really suggest you get hold of it and have a look through. It's a wonderful look at a game that works along multiple levels of the social structure. Like I said, you could play a king or an emperor, and there's a real game in there that you'll really love. Or you can play the typical stuff people like to play. I want to be a knight, I want to be an adventurer, you know, I want to be a murder hobo. You could do that. But this offers you so much more. So this was a really nice, groundbreaking sort of piece of work. I don't see many games try and do this. I would like to see more games try and do this kind of higher meta game within the simple mechanics of, you know, me snot things on head. So look, hats off to these guys. They've done a wonderful job. As I said, look, you can get this as a single bound hardback, and well worth it. The Blossoms Are Falling and Jihad are hard to find now. They've kind of stopped publishing, but they are kind of archived online, so I'll try and put some links to those. So anyway, look, get hold of these and take a look at them. So anyway, cheers everyone, keep playing, and hey, if you like the videos, subscribe and go find my stuff online. Cheers.